Copy that. I'm Lauren O'Quinn here with casting director Matthew Sefick, and we are so excited to welcome today's special guest, actor Brian McNamara. If you've watched TV and film at all in the past 3 decades, chances are you've seen Brian's work because he's been in over 100 films and television shows in that time. His first major role was with Matt Dillon in The Flamingo Kid, directed by the late, great Garry Marshall. He had an incredibly memorable role in the hit sitcom Family Ties, starred in the 80s favorite Short Circuit, and worked opposite comedy legends Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, and Jackie Mason in Caddyshack II. He also battled massive spiders in the creepy hit movie Arachnophobia. More recently, you've seen him on shows like NCIS, Castle, Hawaii Five-0, and most importantly, in the long-running hit series on Lifetime, Army Wives. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you very much. My back starts to hurt just hearing all those credits. I'm feeling older as we speak.
You have been very busy the last 30 years.
Very fortunate.
We're so glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here and to see my old friend, Matt.
Yeah, well, thank you both for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I guess I want to start with, Brian, you were part of 2 projects that were, I guess, formative for me. Short Circuit was my first favorite film ever in life. And Arachnophobia was the first film that I knew was going to be scary, but I actively chose to watch it. Any tidbits you can give us about either of those projects?
Well, I'm realizing now, looking at you and putting it all together, you are the same age as my nephews. So it was my nephews, with Short Circuit anyway, it was my nephews, a number of them, their favorite movie. And I remember them seeing me the first time after seeing that and go, "Uncle Brian, you had your pants shot off." Which is all they took away from the movie. No, they're both great projects. You know, Short Circuit was early on in my career, and I had done Flamingo Kid with Fisher Stevens. Fisher was also in Short Circuit. Fisher was also in Mystery Date, movie that I did. So we like to call ourselves the Hope and Crosby tag team for a while. And that was my first time working in Oregon, and also working with this robot that was really a puppet. So you're literally acting with puppeteers and stuff in different shots. And then Arachnophobia was just a great thrill. It was a big budget, you know, Steven Spielberg produced, shot it up in Northern California, and John Goodman, Jeff Daniels, it was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people right now are curious as to what others are doing right now to help cope with the current state of affairs. What are you up to?
Blue Bloods. That's my brother turned me on to Blue Bloods. I'm loving it. And what's great is, you know, every so often an episode pops up where I see an old friend of mine. You know, I saw Patrick Breen recently, and Mary Stuart Masterson was on an episode. So I'm just digging that, you know, trying to stay in as good shape as I can. The interesting thing about this, my son is home from his freshman year at college. The kids grow up way too quick, so I'm actually really just savoring the extra time I have with Tyler. And I love to cook, and he loves to eat, so it's a match made in heaven.
That's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So, Brian, are you able to make time for any activities or anything that feel like making you a better actor right now, or productive?
I mean, I've always been a big believer that just life makes you a better actor. So whatever this situation is throwing at us is gonna, you know, inform what I do. I'm not gonna lie, I've had moments that have been really challenging. Just, you know, there's a sadness you feel, not seeing people and hugging people and stuff. Not to get too heavy on you, but you know, that's just part of it. And it's gonna, you know, create who I am becoming. We're always becoming, you know, so Just living life, watching movies. I'm doing a reading on Zoom for John Kretschmer. John was one of our directors who directed many times on the show and then became our producing director. So I'll be doing that on Thursday with him.
You know, you mentioned that you're having a hard time sometimes. Do you think it's possible, Brian, that actors, just because we're emotional creatures by nature, may struggle in some ways with this in different ways? And because I think everyone's struggling, like you said, but in different ways, because number one, we don't have necessarily the outlet for our artistic expression, but also, like you said, that human kind of aspect of not being able to connect with other humans like we're used to doing.
Right. And, you know, it's our job to be vulnerable. So we're going to be vulnerable. And if we're alone a lot, that vulnerability doesn't always manifest itself in the best way, you know. But then on the other hand, and it's funny because I was just playing golf the other day with a friend of mine who's a doctor at Cedars-Sinai, and he's an old college buddy, and he's really vibrant right now. And we were talking about it because, you know, other buddy of mine who's out of work and stuff, not in the acting industry, another college buddy, we're like, you know, we just feel like we're standing still and he's busting a move. And it gives you different energy, you know, and I'm just constantly kind of encouraging my kids, 29-year-old daughter and a 19-year-old son to nurture themselves, you know, to ride the wave. And if you're feeling down, okay, talk to us and then let's bounce back, you know. So it's got very unique challenges.
Are either of your kids actors?
My daughter got into acting. She went to College of Charleston. In fact, I put her into one of my episodes that I directed. Nepotism.
Hey, if I could take advantage of some nepotism, I'd be all in.
Yeah.
Well, to kind of switch gears on you a little bit, how do you typically prepare for an audition?
Well, I'm old school, so I still love auditioning in person. I love going in the room. I think that's, I get very frustrated with these self-tapes. But again, as you guys, we were talking earlier on, you just have to embrace whatever comes next, and that's what's next. I do still love going in the room and, you know, working the crowd and then snapping into character, because I think that shows them an ability to, you know, be ready when the camera rolls. But a couple of the obvious steps are getting the lines out of the way as much as possible. And I often still, well, I pretty much always still hold the sides in my hand, because I want them to be reminded that this is a work in progress, you know. So even if I'm off book, I have the script in my hand. And then I try to discern from the scene what they're looking for. I have a very technical, it's not the most, you know, Stanislavski kind of approach to it. I'm sitting there thinking of the director and the writer and the producer going, what are they looking for? And how can I give it to them? And that's part of what I bring into the room. And I always look for something that stands out, something that I really strongly believe no other actor is going to think of. Because it gives me a great feeling of confidence. Even I could be wrong. I'm sure I'm wrong on a number of occasions, but it gives me that confidence that there's going to be a moment where I'm going to wow them, and they're going to be like, whoa, okay. I love being the dark horse. I love when they have other choices, and then I walk in the room and they go, oh, okay, interesting, you know, so.
Yeah, I bet you're great in the room.
I enjoy it because it's such a, you know, as you know, such a collaborative process, and that's where the collaboration begins, you know. So unless you're in with a casting director who's just sitting eating lunch and, you know, mumbling the words to you, which over 35 years of doing this, I've had my share of, you know, those instances. So
Does it vary from role to role how much time you put into preparation?
Yeah, but again, most of the time it's about the writing. I'm pretty quick to memorize things. I'm very blessed that way. I can't remember what I did yesterday, but I can pick up lines really quickly. And when something's well written, I can pick it up even quicker. You know, if it's just written right, it just sinks, you know, it sinks in really quickly. So again, a lot of times that's dictated by how wordy the audition is, you know, and how can I get away with little glances at my script, or do I really need to be, you know, what a scientist who's just got his shit. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. But
it's the internet. You can say anything.
Oh, good. Well then. No, but you know, someone who's really on it and just needs to have this stuff roll off the top of his head. So, you know, those things factor in.
And so you've got obviously an extensive resume. So you've auditioned a lot over the years. What do you think you've learned the most about the process?
Well, something that has just been reinforced all through the years, but something that I just knew early on is I love acting. I've been doing this 35 years. I love acting as much as I did when I first discovered I was an actor, you know, junior year in college. And I take that into the room, because if you love acting, and this was the trick I was referring to before, if you love acting, you're getting to act for 5 minutes. So rather than fight it or let the angst overtake you, go in the room with the joy that you're getting to act for 5 minutes. And, you know, I worked with a French teacher at one point who he called it an armpit to armpit smile. That your body is just happy to be there, regardless of what emotion the character's going through. There's just a vibrancy because you love it.
Yeah, I love that piece of advice. I actually offer it all the time. I love to think of it as, today I get to act, right? This is the thing that I live to do, instead of dreading an audition. For 3 minutes, that's my role. Nobody else can take it. It's mine.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. And to that end, you know, the working on it, getting it ready is part of the fun as well, you know. So
Brian, do you have any audition horror stories that you remember? Anytime that you walked out thinking, well, that didn't go well?
Again, this might be too honest. I had a pretty bad meltdown at one point. You know, I've had a good career, but a roller coaster of a career. And you have kids, and, you know, bills come due, and you've been on a roll of not booking any jobs for a few months and stuff. And I've always been able to do sitcom work in my sleep, you know, just the rhythms of comedy and stuff. I have this ability. And one time during one of these lows, I went to an audition and I started to have a major anxiety attack. And a buddy of mine who I had done a series with was there. And he's like, what's going on? What are you doing? I go, I don't think I'm funny. I don't think I can do this. And he was like, let's go outside. Let's just read through it. And so we read through it a couple times, and he was like, you're right. You're not funny. And he was like, just fuck it. Just go in the room, you know, don't worry about it. And I did, but I didn't get through it. And I did a bad job, and I went back to my manager's office afterwards, and I literally had about an hour-long meltdown, you know, and she was, as always, fantastically supportive and stuff. And the next day I booked a series, a dramatic series. I went to a network audition, and I crushed it and got the job. So
I love that. It's so important for actors to hear that. I don't know a professional actor out there that hasn't had that day, that doubts themselves, doubts that they even know what they're doing, has a meltdown in an agent or manager's office, all those things. And then it's the actors that can keep going, that continue, that don't quit, that suddenly find that success is just a little
it's
farther down
one
the
of
road.
the major keywords of our profession, I think, is perseverance.
Yes, I totally agree. Totally agree.
If you could go back in time and give a young Brian McNamara a piece of advice about auditioning, what would it be?
Don't be too comfortable. I've had instances through the years where casting directors have said to me, after the fact, when I haven't booked a job, that there's an ease to my acting that can be mistaken for not doing anything, not being good, being sleepy almost, and so just to take every opportunity and push yourself and infuse it with, some Java, some mojo.
Who's an actor that you admire, Brian?
Many of them, but Peter O'Toole has always been one of my favorites, one of my all-time favorites. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a John Wayne fan. I've been a John Wayne fan. I mean, that's a movie star,
Absolutely.
Don't agree with his politics or his politics were whatsoever, but asking a question like that is asking somebody, hey, what's your favorite restaurant in the neighborhood? You can't think of it, but if one pops up, I'll bring it up again.
Did you ever get to work with someone that you really admired where you were like, oh, I'm so excited that I get to work with this person that I've watched before?
James Garner.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
I, always really liked, and I liked for that very reason I was talking about before. He just made it look so easy, and I got to do a pilot episode with him, and we had a really great time.
That's awesome.
So you brought up self-taping and that you prefer getting in the room. Do you prepare differently for self-tapes than you do when you're going to be in the room with producers, directors, casting directors?
No, because the work is still the same. The scene you got to put on. The only difference are the logistics of it. Whether I'm having my daughter read with me. I'm very fortunate. I got a really good buddy who's got sort of a whole camera set up, and he's about 5 minutes away, and he's a really good actor as well. So I have that support system. But sometimes if neither of them are around, I've got to work with somebody who's not an actor, or, I've done scenes sometimes with, if I haven't been able to get anybody, just nobody there, just doing it almost as a monologue. I'm sure it looks kind of crazy to people, but what are you going to do?
Well, it's interesting. We couldn't get away with that in the Southeast. In LA, there's different things, and especially someone with your resume can get away with things that actors that are in a co-star market can't necessarily get away with.
Right.
The casting directors like Matt Sefick are real strict about what they want on their tapes.
Right.
So.
And a lot of casting directors around LA are becoming more and more specific about what they want, and what the slate shot should be, and and the only other thing, and I think any actor can incorporate this, but it's I think a little easier for me because I've directed, is I figure out what size shot I want for this particular scene. If it's a gregarious, big energy scene, I'm going to go wider and give myself room to play. If it's a very intimate, emotional scene, I'll go right in nice and close and not worry about it, and just let the slate be a nice wide shot, so. Yeah,
that's cool.
And then I try and give myself a lighting so I don't have too many chins.
That's the key. That's always me. How can I stand where I don't have as many chins?
See, you, Lauren, you have fabulous lighting right now.
Thank you so much. That's my self-tape lights aimed at us.
Oh, perfect.
Well, that segues nicely into what we're going to ask next is, so yes, you have directed episodes of televisions and projects. What surprised you most about being on the other side of the selection process?
I guess how easy it is. Yet another thing that I guess I sort of resisted. I thought, oh, this isn't right. I shouldn't be judging people, but it's my job, and here they come. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, it's you know what you're looking for. And it's very true. And I don't say this to discourage any actor, but a lot of times they know right away, and there's just an energy, there's just a something. And you still go in and you still kick some ass, but because you can change minds during a scene and stuff like that. But, just let it go, because a lot of it is out of your control. So again, this goes back to just have fun. Love acting, have a good time and do the best that you can. Don't get in your own way. That's the best shot you're going to give yourself.
I mean, we can change lots of things, like you said, and make lots of great choices, but we can't change our essence. And they're going to perceive that right away, right?
Right. And Lauren, I'm sure you're familiar with this. And I've always wanted to do an entire show about this, which is the drive home from an audition. This is the drive home from an audition. You could have done better. Oh my God, I can't believe. Oh, now I get it. Now
You replay it a million times. You're all,
right.
My God, that's what the director meant. Now, totally. And the worst part is if that drive home is long. In the Southeast, sometimes that drive is Atlanta to Orlando or Orlando to Miami, and you're like, now I have nothing but 9 hours
right
to replay how terrible that was. And all the better choices I could have made.
Yeah. And the other thing I think as a director too, that I always wondered about, but was proven that it was true when I was the director in the room, which is to say that sometimes you give somebody direction, not because they're off the first time, just because you want to see that they're directable. You want to see that and the biggest thing for me is I want life, because that's the thing that took me a while to learn, is the camera sees life. So you really don't have to show the camera all that much. You just have to live in front of it with those feelings and whatever's going on with the character. And listening is so incredibly important and stuff. So, when I'm looking at actors in the room, that's what I'm looking for. It's just those little bits of life that they haven't closed themselves down or, closed off options. They're open,
Do you feel like there's anything you've learned directing that's made you a better actor?
Yeah. And again, I throw this back to John Kretschmer. He gave me a great book when I was getting to do my first episode of Army Wives. It's by John Badham, who directed Short Circuit, and it's called I'll Be in My Trailer. And it's actually a kind of collection of different people, actors, producers, writers, all with little snippet stories about, how to talk to actors. And the title is born out of the fact that when he was doing Saturday Night Fever with John Travolta, a night shoot on the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, he set up a shot. It was cold, and he set up a shot with the stunt guys. And John was in his trailer, and he came out and he was like, okay, so John, I got this guy crawling along the railing here. And John goes, my character wouldn't crawl, he'd walk. And he goes, yeah, but it's icy out there and it's windy, so the stunt guys think it's safer. He goes, I'll be in my trailer. And that's, so you have to learn how to talk to actors. So that's a long-winded way of saying, in this book, the biggest takeaway was you have to talk with an actor in such a way that they embrace the answer. You can't give them you know, you can suggest and stuff, and you can talk with, and what about this? And there are times when there's no time for that, and you just got to step in and go, just get it done. But if you have the luxury of being able to talk, and usually what I do is I'll offer myself up to the actors before their day of shooting and just say, call me at night if you want to talk about stuff. We just can't really talk about it on set when 200 people are standing around waiting, is to just talk in such a way that it makes them own the answer, because it makes then their choice that much more organic for them.
Now, I'm sure it varies, and this is a pre-pandemic sort of question, but how often do you normally audition?
Well, it's been an interesting trajectory. You know, when I was starting out, I'd do, I don't know, sometimes 15, 20 auditions a week. During pilot season, which at that time was like a 3-month period in the spring, very defined. And, you know, I'd do network auditions, the final audition before getting the job, 3-4 times a week, sometimes a couple times a day, you know. Now, as I've gotten older and, you know, things in the business and they're always changing, and you do always have to adapt. It's gotten a bit slower, you know. I've gone 2-3 months without an audition. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, frustrating for me as it is for everybody.
I'm sure. How do you select what projects you will or won't do? Are there certain things that you as an actor say, I'm not interested in doing that besides porn? You know, that's not my thing. I'm not interested in that.
Well, porn is my thing, but.
Oh, okay, right. Okay. Well, that one I didn't put words in your mouth. Yeah.
But great. There's going to be a clip of that out there.
Just that clip.
No, the question I usually ask is, are they going to pay me? You know, I'm not, and I've always been this way. I've always told my agents, you know, if I hit it big, I hit it big, but just keep me working. Mm-hmm. I'm a blue collar actor. Just keep me working. Mm-hmm. I really don't have too many restrictions on what I'll do, again, because I get to act.
Yeah, you love the process. You love craft.
I love, and you know, Matt can attest to this, I love being on set with all those people.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I actually meant to point that out, Lauren, before we got started, but Brian, while he played the general on Army Wives, he was pretty much a mentor to the entire crew and the cast. I mean, it was, you know, he made the announcement to the crew that we were picked up for a season 3 before we'd even started shooting season 2, if I remember correctly. Wow. So he was, you know, he was always kind of our leader.
That's so awesome.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he rocked that general's wardrobe too. So that worked.
But one of the things I am most proud of is I just have a good time doing it, you know, and I like to hear people laugh, and, you know, so I like to do a really serious speech, and when they yell cut, say some stupid frickin' thing to make people laugh. You know, because it makes it, we actors, we come and go, you know, and we're not there for, I mean, on Army Wives, they used to call me part-time. Hey, part-time, how long you with us today? And
funny.
But the crew is there from first thing, and that's why I love directing, because I'm there from first thing in the morning until the very last thing in the evening. And the quicker I work, the more alive everybody is, and the more excited they are to move forward and stuff. But I just think laughter and enjoyment of what we do, because when we're working long hours, it can be, you know, your life. So you might as well enjoy your life. And I think it makes the cruise time go a little quicker.
Is comedy your favorite genre to work in?
I love comedy, but I couldn't say that, because I love drama just as much.
Can't pick. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, people often ask me, do do you like directing more than acting? The only reason I would say I like directing more is because I'm there from first thing in the morning till the end of the day. That I like. I love being with the crew. And when I was doing Army Wives, I've gone on and directed a number of things that I haven't acted in, which is really fun. But when I was doing Army Wives and I had a scene I had to get ready for as an actor, I was like, do I have to go to makeup now? I don't want to leave, you know, so. But Matt, you were involved when we cast Sterling's son, Makari.
Oh yeah,
Makari.
definitely.
Makari's from Orlando. I worked with Makari.
Right.
I used to coach him. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I coached Makari for years, and then we were in commercials together and stuff, and so that was a big deal when he booked Army Wives.
Right. No, and that was, I was really fortunate because the producers really asked me about the process and what they thought, because they knew it was going to be an actor who was going to be in it and stuff. But that's exactly what I was talking about earlier, is that he was alive.
Mm-hmm.
The two other kids, or at least one other kid, was very, very good. But Makari was alive. And that made all the difference.
It's so funny. Makari has always had a spark. And
Yeah.
I don't know that we'll include this in an interview, but I want to tell you, I did this commercial. It's so funny. Years ago, he was probably 8.
Mm-hmm.
And I booked a commercial it was a SAG National for Canada for Chrysler.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a big shoot, you know, and they had me driving a minivan. And there were 4 kids in the back, 3 of whom were very white, and then Makari. And so we're getting ready to shoot. There's a huge crew that day, and we're doing it on green screen, whatever. And Makari goes, and I'd been coaching him already for a couple years. He's like, I got a question. Why am I in this van? I said, because we're all going to the soccer game. And he goes, yeah, but who am I to you? Because you're clearly not my mama. And I mean, people cracked up all over. And I said, you don't know that. I could be your mom. Have you not seen Angelina Jolie? I was like, she has kids of all different colors and you know, different cultural backgrounds. And he goes, yeah, but you're not Angelina Jolie. It was hilarious. So that's all I could think about. I was like, you're the token friend, Makari. He goes, okay, that makes more sense. Oh my God. He was just so funny. Even at 8, we laughed so hard.
Yeah.
Well,
he's a funny kid.
And Brian, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is actually, I've told this story a couple of times, but him being cast is interesting on a couple of different levels. So I'm not sure if you remember the big giant computer that was in our casting trailer.
Yeah.
But I had to work that weekend. And so to download all the auditions so we could watch them on Monday. And I was going through, and I knew that was going to be a tough role. And I downloaded everything, and I just wanted to watch one just to get a sense of, you know, what the kids were doing. And I pulled up his audition just really because his name was interesting, and watched it. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I feel pretty good about this, you know. So I didn't look at the rest of them until Monday. But yeah, and then you're exactly right. There was a kid that they brought in from New York, and then Makari came up from Orlando. And that was a case where we knew, because Sterling came in to read with him. I'm not sure if you remember that.
I do.
And we knew Makari was the kid before the audition even happened, just in our little waiting space.
Yeah.
So his, you know, that was a challenging role to begin with. And I mean, he killed it from top to bottom, everything about it.
And then the flip side of that coin is you can look at a number of tapes and sit there and go, oh my God, what are we going to do? We can't find the person. And then all of a sudden one pops in and you go, oh, good, got it.
Yep.
At least got one choice. You know, now we can find another choice.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. And then, you know, the other thing too is, as you know, Matt, it's ultimately up to the producers, you know. So in those auditions, when you go into the room and you get to work with the director and stuff, that's fantastic. And if you have a great rapport with the director, that's fantastic too. If you don't get the job, try not to beat yourself up too much. There are a lot of cooks in the kitchen, you know, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and another little story from Army Wives I wanted to tell you. It still goes down as probably one of the biggest mistakes I've made in my career. So I would get the DVDs and I'd watch them with Aaron probably a few days before the show actually aired. It was, so it was like a Wednesday or Thursday. We'd watch the show that was going to air that weekend.
Right.
And so remember our episode with Nikki Haley?
Yes.
Yeah. So we got to the credits and the credits played out. And at this point it's like 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And I'm like, holy shit, we forgot to credit Nikki Haley. And it was because we didn't have a deal memo for her. She wasn't on the cast list. She didn't get paid. It went to a charity. And so here I am discovering this at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday night. The episode,
but she wanted credit, right?
Huh?
She wanted credit.
Well, we hadn't even discussed it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so I could only get Barbara on the phone, and I'm like, this is a major problem.
Right.
And so the next day we go in and we contact her office to see how she wants to be credited. And then I have to talk to Post, and they had already shipped all what was going to air to all the different places that it had to go to. And they had to pull those, reissue it. It was, I'm lucky. I feel lucky to have caught it, but it was one of those where it was like, oh no, this is bad.
Right.
Oops.
Yeah.
Well, if it helps at all, I basically had that feeling almost at the end of every episode that I directed. I'd call Rap and I'd go, did I get everything? Do I? In the first episode I directed, there was a female helicopter pilot who gets raped. And it's one of the first things I shot. And I was on the phone with the editor, just introducing myself, that she was back in LA. And she says to me during that first phone call, it's like 2 or 3 days into the episode, and she goes, I'm having a hard time with the rape scene. And I'm like, I'm kind of new to all this, so I don't know what exactly to ask. And I'm like, are you missing something? She goes, no. I go, okay. And I get off the phone, and, as the days go by, I'm like, what? I already screwed something up. And I called her at the end of the episode, and I said, I gotta ask you something. You said you were having a hard time with the rape scene. She goes, oh, yeah, because it's a fucking good scene. It was hard to cut together. And I was like, oh, okay.
Wow. That would have been a nice bit of info to have earlier on.
Yeah, I think it was good, though. It kept me on my toes. I was very insecure,
I think that's also the actor response, like, I screwed it up. It's definitely me. I'm the fault. I'm the problem.
Why do we do that to ourselves?
I know. It's funny because I talk to actors about this all the time. I'm sure you've seen it. Why are actors the only people on set that feel the need to constantly apologize? Like, the DP doesn't say, guys, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Focus was not set. Can we please do another one? Or, the gaffer's not like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. There was a shadow. I'm sorry, guys. But actors, maybe because it's so personal, it's such a, we're laying ourselves out there. Like you said, it's our job to be vulnerable. We feel like we have to apologize when we stumble or make a mistake or want to do another take.
Right. Well, my theory on that is the gaffer and the DP, all those guys, they got their job.
Right.
We're
didn't have to go
worried about our job.
So true.
I can do it better. I swear I can do it.
Please don't replace me. Please don't replace me. Do you have any embarrassing mistakes that you've ever made on set as an actor where you felt like that was embarrassing?
I guess nothing terrible, but the first time I did an episode of Murder, She Wrote, I was the killer. Mm-hmm. And there's always the scene at the end of the episode where Angela says how she figured out you were the killer. And it's this long monologue, and they cut to all the flashback scenes and stuff like that. Well, so they did my coverage, and I was looking to her camera right. And so when they turned, and I always prided myself on knowing technical things about stuff. So they turned around on her, and I went camera left. I was ready, you know, and she looked at me and she went, "Oh, Brian, what are you doing?" And I go, I was looking at you camera right, so you're looking at me camera left. She goes, "No, that's where the monitor goes. So I can read the teleprompter, so I can read it." She goes, "You stand over somewhere else. I don't care where you stand, just not
Please
there."
go away.
And I was like, okay.
Oh, right. That's hilarious. I love it. But you got to work with Angela Lansbury. How was that experience?
You know, I got fortunate enough to work with her 4 different times.
Wow.
Because after that episode of Murder, She Wrote, about a year later, and this was during one of my lulls, I couldn't book a job, I got a call from Murder, She Wrote saying, you know, they want you to do this thing. And I needed the gig. I wanted the gig, but I felt compelled. I called up the producer, and who was her husband, and I said, you know, I was the killer in the last one, so I don't think I can play this guy. And he goes, and I said, "Believe me, I want to," you know. He goes, "No, Angela likes you. When Angela likes somebody, she hires them back because she likes professional people and people with a good spirit." And so it was a very great compliment. And then I did a 3rd Murder, She Wrote. And then I did a Touched by an Angel where she played my grandmother.
Oh.
It really was, that was great because we had a couple scenes where we just went at it. And she was, 9 o'clock at night, you know, they're saying, "Angela, do you want to go home?" Like at 7, they're like, "Do you want to go home?" She goes, "Brian, do you want to go home?" I'm like, "No, you do what you want." She goes, "Let's knock it out. Let's just get in there and knock it out." And, you know, that's what pros do, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's so cool.
And one other little anecdote early on, very early in my career, which set the tone for me. I did a number of episodes of St. Elsewhere. And Dorothy McGuire, I don't know if you remember her, but she played my grandmother. And it was a Kennedy storyline. And it was just phenomenal working with her because she was such an old pro. And she was basically, I think she was in her mid-80s, and she was like a 15-year-old flirt in an 80-year-old body. She was just so cool and cute and everything, flirting up a storm. But we did this one scene where, you know, it's like kind of the Kennedys, and she's Rose Kennedy. And while she was in quadruple bypass surgery, my dad, who was next in line for the presidency, gets assassinated. So she wakes up from surgery and she sees my face and the doctors around us, and she knows what happened. And she comes walking in from the dressing rooms, and there are people helping her into the hospital room and stuff. And she's sitting down on the bed, and she calls the technical advisor over, a nurse, and she says, "What would I be feeling here? Like physically?" She goes, "Well, you'd be very disoriented. You'd still be in a substantial amount of pain. You'd have a very dry, raspy throat from the tubes being, you know," and she goes, "Okay." And she lays down in the bed, and we go to do rehearsal, and the director comes up to her and says, "Listen, you know, you don't have to give it to me. Just save it for your close-up." And she was like, "Why would I do that?" And I go, I'm listening to this. I'm like 25, 26 years old. And she goes, "I give it every time for everybody's camera, everybody's take." Still gets me.
Isn't that so great to get to learn from the masters like that as they work?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a work ethic right there.
Yes. Yeah. You know, I want to ask what your opinion is on this, because I get asked this all the time, and I'll tell you what I say afterwards. But what do you think is the most important aspect of being a working actor? If you had to name a character trait, what do you think it takes to be a working actor?
I think it's that. I think it's that work ethic. Because And this is the other thing I always try to impart to people when they audition is, if you get the job, you're going into a machine that just goes through money. You know, I mean, the amount of salaries for the crew, the cameras, the lights, it's just money, money, money. Mm-hmm. So when you're doing an audition, there is a part of it where these people need to know that when the camera rolls, you're good to go. So you don't want somebody who needs a lot of hand holding. You know, you just want somebody who gets themselves ready, takes care of themselves in such a way that they're ready to go. And when it's time to roll the camera, they don't go, "Can I have a moment, please?" No, you can't have a moment. You can't.
Yeah. It's not actually all about you. We have a few things going
right.
on. Yeah, it's funny because I say that exact thing. I say discipline / work ethic, because, you know, actors are notoriously flaky. And so sometimes we have a tendency to have a challenging time with follow through. We have the best intentions, but we don't follow through. But it's the actors that get up every single day and do it over and over and over and over, and accept that failure is 90% of the process, and still do what they have to do without being told, without somebody holding their hands, without somebody else pulling them along. Those are the ones that are bound to succeed and actually make a career out of being a working actor.
Right, right. And, you know, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but most producers have a life is too short list. And you go on that list if you're a pain in the ass to work with. I'm not working with that person again. You know, I can't tell you, at least 24 producers I've worked with have talked to me about the life is too short list.
Matt, do casting directors have that too? Because I've heard a couple say that they've got a few things flagged as basically life is too short. There's too many other people.
Yeah, there are a couple that I just don't ask to audition because it's, you know, bad experiences. But yeah, it's a short list, luckily. Right.
Good.
So, Brian, if you could point to one show that you've worked on that we should go back and watch, what would that be?
I think I'd have to say Army Wives. Yeah. I got such a playground on Army Wives to do such a great character. I mean, my ex, once that show started airing, my ex-wife, who, you know, we're very good friends and we parent together really well, but she was like, "So all of America thinks you're the greatest freaking husband and father in all the land now." And I go, "Yep." And I get paid for it. But it's true. I as you know, I had these great moments of being a very powerful leader, and then great moments of being a very sensitive father and husband and stuff. And it was just good writing. It was also, you know, a show that we were all proud to be a part of.
Yeah, it's one of those that you kind of hold other work experiences up to it for comparison, I've found.
Yeah.
Well, as we wrap things up, I did want to ask you, how do you see our industry coming out of this pandemic?
Oh, well, I have to guess pretty much the same as any other industry, which is to say that, you know, we got to be safe and we got to follow the science and beat the disease itself, or at least control it, and then get back to working side by side with each other, you know. So it's going to alter some things, but it won't alter the spirit. I mean, I think the spirit of all of us getting back on a set and seeing each other is going to be really something special.
And before we sign off, I just want to ask that, you know, we don't know what voting in November is going to look like in November, but please make sure to do so. We've got to get somebody in the White House that gives a shit about somebody other than himself or his family.
Yeah, get out and vote.
Copy
Even
that.
if you're voting a different way, it doesn't matter. Use your voice.
Yes, I totally agree. Brian, thank you so much for joining us today. You have such great stories. We love it.
My pleasure. I hope they weren't too long-winded.
No, not at all.